Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna Wagner, the Communications Manager at Lawyer One, and I have the pleasure to sit down today with Jarrett Ellzey. Jarrett Ellzey is a Texas-based personal injury attorney and partner at the firm Hughes Ellzey. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're actually going to sit down and talk about trucking accidents. And it's crazy because I live in California and I read that it's that of 130% of California. So it's something that's quite common. And you are a personal injury attorney. So if you don't mind telling the viewers really what a personal injury attorney would do in this case and just common practice areas in general for you.
Well, sure. I think you're talking about Texas being a state that has a lot of commercial vehicle accidents, truck accidents, it is. Starts with the size of the state. Texas is a big state like California. There's a lot of heavy industry in the state of Texas, though. So you have an 800-mile wide state with interstates crisscrossing across it and a lot of industry going on. So you got to think about, for instance, the oil industry. You have oil industry in West Texas, you have oil industry in the Panhandle, you have oil industry in South Texas, and you have commercial vehicles carrying supplies, materials all over the state of Texas. Now, a lot of accidents happen just because of the additional traffic on the road. That's one thing. Another thing is the state of Texas is actually losing its commercial vehicle drivers now as the price of living in the state of Texas, one time notoriously cheap, is getting higher. You have a lot of laborers leaving the state of Texas to go work elsewhere. And these very valuable, experienced drivers that are left in the state are getting pushed to their limits and are often required to drive more than they usually would. And so this results in a lot of accidents. Population is booming. The city of Houston has, I remember back in 2012, we had 80,000 people move here in 1 month. And that's happening all over the state, major urban centers, and also in rural parts of the state. So you just have a population boom. What does that lead to? More cars on the road. And as I mentioned, more industry, so more accidents. People need to be careful on the roads. When something happens and they get hurt in a car accident involving a commercial vehicle, you certainly need to reach out to a lawyer to assist you with the process.
So what would you recommend as far as steps 1, 2, and 3 when it initially happens, things to document, who to talk to first versus insurance companies? How would you recommend you go about doing that?
Well, it starts with the accident. If the victim is physically able, he or she needs to take pictures of the scene. Often in these cases, there's a dispute about who hit whom, who cut off whom, and taking pictures of where the vehicles are positioned after a truck accident is critical. We deal with that all the time. Just the positioning of a vehicle in a single picture can allow an accident reconstructionist to demonstrate how the accident occurred or get very close with some assumptions of what the vehicles were doing before impact. So that's one. The second thing any victim of an accident needs to do is document. And it sounds ridiculous because somebody going through recovery almost never does anything like this, but a victim of a car accident needs to keep a journal of medical treatment, physical therapy, everything that person goes through that results from a commercial vehicle accident, including mental struggles such as depression, and treatment related to that. That all needs to be documented. It's going to be documented in medical records, but it's also important for the injured individual or his or her family to actually document the physical and mental struggles after the accident. Now, also any sort of lost wage data that needs to be collected and saved. Any lost wages stemming from the accident and the injury. That's critical to keep. Also, it's very helpful to the attorney for the family and the injured party to actually start gathering medical records on his or her own. That's very helpful to an attorney's initial evaluation of the case. So Those things are critical at the beginning. It's very useful throughout the case to preserve that sort of information.
How severe does the case have to be in order to see a settlement?
It depends on the attorney representing the injured individual. I mean, anytime someone is a victim of negligence in a commercial vehicle accident, which is what we're talking about, and the individual was injured, they are probably entitled to compensation. Now, my firm typically takes cases involving more serious injuries, but anyone who's been injured should not deal directly with the carrier on the other side. That person should get a lawyer. It just happens that our firm takes cases that involve
larger corporations. Would you say if you were to be hit by a large corporation commercial vehicle, is it more challenging or?
No, not necessarily. I mean, all commercial vehicles are required to have certain minimum amounts of insurance coverage.
Okay.
So you're not going to be dealing really much with the company directly at the beginning. You're going to be dealing more with the company's insurance carrier. So we really don't look at cases in terms of what defendant hit the plaintiff, things like that. I mean, it's if the plaintiff is seriously injured and liability is clear to us at the outset, we're going to look hard at the case regardless of the defendant.
And in Texas, is there a statute of limitations when filing?
Yes, the case needs to be filed within 2 years.
And what kind of preparation would you recommend, besides obviously keeping a journal, questioning when they're looking for an attorney that would be a good fit for them?
Sure. I think any victim of negligence needs to look hard for an attorney who tries cases, who has a trial record. And although a very small percentage of cases go to trial, I think it's only about 5% these days. A trial lawyer is important because my belief is that a trial lawyer understands how to work up a case better than someone who doesn't have a lot of trial experience. Trial experience gives you an eye for looking at certain issues that may not be readily apparent at the beginning of the case, and you work it up as if it's going to be tried from day one. Someone that doesn't have a lot of trial experience may not catch certain things at the beginning of a case. It's also important to find a lawyer that you just have a good feel for.
Yeah.
And interviewing lawyers need to have a good feeling. Don't just look at someone's resume and say, this is a lawyer for me. When you talk to that lawyer, you need to have a feeling that you can trust that person.
And when you do have a great attorney, what kind of damages could be recovered from a case like this? I guess especially if it results in death.
The damages available to a victim of a commercial vehicle accident, it's damages available under negligence. And they are the economic damages would be any lost wages that resulted from the accident, any medical expenses that resulted from the accident. Non-economic damages include pain and suffering, mental anguish. In some circumstances, punitive damages are available, and that's when the plaintiff is able to show gross negligence. And gross negligence constitutes willful or reckless conduct. And any punitive damages or exemplary damages, those are damages intended to punish the individual or company for that willful or reckless conduct.
Texas, are there any restrictions as far as family members who cannot file a claim commercial accident?
Well, the victim of the accident, if that victim is still living, is the plaintiff in the case. In cases where there's a minor involved, for instance, if only the minor gets injured in a car accident involving a commercial vehicle, the parents or guardian will have to bring the action on behalf of the minor. Okay. Now, in a case involving death, either the administrator of the decedent's estate, surviving spouse, or children, including adopted children, bring a negligence action on behalf of the decedent.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us about that. If you are in Texas and you are seeking a personal injury attorney, please feel free to check out Hughes Ellzey and Jarrett Ellzey. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.